What is up? What is up, guys? Um, Happy Wednesday, guys. Obviously, by the time we drop this, it'll be Thursday. But, um, guys, we're back. We're back in full swing. Momentum is rolling. Um, things have felt super clear this week. It's been very interesting, but um, there's been a lot. There's been a lot kind of going through my mind, and I have no idea what today's podcast is going to be about. But the reality that I found is you just have to show up and you just have to start making those steps and put yourself behind the camera. And I've said this before. You just have to start taking steps. And the crazy part is clarity comes from that, right? A really good example of this, still breathing hard. I always get my 50 push-ups in before this podcast just because I want to really get out of my head and just get to a point where I'm in flow state, right? And for me, connecting with my body has definitely helped a whole lot when it comes to getting into that flow state, getting out of my head a little bit, and then obviously rambling for a minute just kind of it helps. So that's a good hack if you are ever feeling stressed or feeling like you're too in your head. Guys, just drop down and do 50 push-ups. That's do some breathing after, make sure that you've caught your breath and then just get right back to it. But um my point being that clarity comes from action, guys. So if you're feeling unclear, a lot of the time it's simply because you haven't taken the first step, right? A lot of the time I am completely unclear of what I'm going to say on this podcast. I have no idea. None of these are scripted. I literally wake up in the morning and I'm like thoughts flood my brain of what am I going to talk about on this podcast? What am I going to do? I have a time slot and I need to reach people and I have a message but you can't script the whole thing out in your head. And I've tried that before. I've literally sat down and been like, okay, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this. And the interesting thing about that is a lot of the time that just makes people not feel like it's authentic, right? If you can sit down and you can just talk to the camera as if it was a normal person and ramble on and give them the message that comes down, like the first thing that comes to your mind, then that feels a whole lot more authentic, right? So, with that being said, I try my best not to overthink this. Recently, after this is episode 12 now, but after doing this podcast for so long, I've gotten to the point where I have those thoughts of what am I going to talk about? And I immediately follow it up with, I don't need to know right now. Once I get in that room and I hit record, I'll know. There are many, many, many um, examples of this in my day-to-day life. When I started Sovereign Lifestyle, well, we'll give you just a couple, but I'm also going to give you a backstory on my businesses and how things came to be. But when I started Sovereign Lifestyle, the idea of it was to be a clothing company. And the crazy thing was I had no idea where it was going to go. It was my first business. So I was just I'm just going to come up with a cool name. I'm going to get it printed on some shirts, some hoodies, and I'm just going to see what I can do. And the crazy part about that was the more and more, once I got those hoodies delivered and once I had a connection or once I had a logo and the LLC and all the stuff, it made me feel more and more connected to the brand of what Sovereign Lifestyle is. And back then it was actually Sovereign Society was what we called it. But as time went on, and I kept Sovereign close to me, the vision became more and more clear of what was going, where it needed to go. So we ended up rebranding. We've rebranded 3 times already, and it's been around for 5, 6 years. So, but had I not gotten those original logos, I would have never known what I was looking for. So eventually we rebranded. we switched to from Sovereign Lifestyle to Sovereign Society, and then where I started excelling and like being the most passionate was coaching people. And so, of course, I changed Sovereign Lifestyle to a coaching company rather than a clothing company. But my point being with this is like, in the beginning, I had no clarity. I had no idea. Like, I was working at Vasa, uh, living in my aunt's basement on her couch when I started Sovereign Lifestyle. I had no idea. But the more steps I took to get Sovereign Lifestyle up and going and connect with the brand, the clearer the vision got. And now it's crazy because once you have that vision, then you can start enrolling people in it, right? So for me, like I mean, yes, I still have to have the vision, right? But um I don't even have to have, I would say, like the motivation anymore, right? Even though I'm still super motivated, I believe in leading from the front, but I've got people like enrolled in Sovereign Lifestyle. So the crazy part is even on my down days, like even when I don't feel super connected to the brand or even when I don't know the next step, I've got those people I can lean on. And I can be like, "Okay guys, what are we doing? Where are we going? Like what?" And the crazy part is they remind you of your own vision. Like when you fall into doubt, and this, it doesn't happen for me very often anymore just because I've like it's I'm so close to making this like just insane. But my point being, like, when you lose the vision or when you have those down days or when you start to doubt yourself, the more that you've built, it's like momentum, right? Like the more that you've built and the farther along the process you go, the more reminders you have that things are going the way you want them. Like the more reminders you have of, how do I even say that? But like you just have those people around you that keep you going, have those people, have the accolades, have the reviews and like all the stuff. So you stop relying on your own motivation. You stop relying on those things because the company has its own momentum now, and you can rely on that a whole lot more. So my point being that in the beginning, the vision was super unclear. I had no idea what I was doing with Sovereign Lifestyle. I literally just thought it was cool to have my company's name on some type of merch. I just thought that was cool. And then eventually I reconnected with the brand and found my way. And, the clarity has like, since we've given it that direction, it's crazy to see what we've done. And now it's not even like, I don't even have those days where I don't know the direction we're going because it's just so like set in stone now. But guys, my point being that a lot of the time, like if you're feeling foggy, like if you have brain fog, if you don't know what the next move is, a lot of the time you simply just have to start. Take that first step, start recording, come up with that name, like whatever the dream is, take the smallest little step in order to initiate moving towards the end goal. And you may pivot, like you may switch things up and you may not even go the direction you thought you were going to go. The more clarity and knowledge you gain along the way, like you may pivot, but that's that, like going down one direction and then pivoting into something else is a whole lot better than being so like mentally foggy that you never even start. Guys, truly the only thing that keeps you stuck and keeps you feeling like you're getting nowhere is not doing anything. So guys, I feel like that's going to be the moral of the story today. The moral of the topic of this podcast is like, clarity comes from starting. Clarity comes from action, guys. So with that being said, like you just have to take action, right? Action should always be the default. When it's super interesting because it's like a lot of people show up conditionally, right? And the crazy part about that is when you show up conditionally, you will only succeed conditionally, right? So with that being said, for me, like for the way that I look at things is in business, relationships, right? Everything, the gym, um, you have to show up on those days when you don't feel like showing up. Like you have to prove that you're consistent and you're not going to be conditional. And the crazy part about that is once you get that down, then your success in those areas will stop being conditional. And then you build stability because you know what to expect. But the biggest problem with people in entrepreneurship, anything like entrepreneurship, family, the gym, is they expect to show up one time and get the result, or they expect to show up, whatever, 14 days out of the last 30 or whatever whatever their amount is, and they expect the result. But it's like the reality is, guys, if you show up conditionally, you're not going to have the result. You may get lucky and get it like once or like a couple times, but you have to remove condition, right? You have to, um, yeah, you just have to kind of wrap your head around that and be like, I'm going to show up like unconditionally. I'm going to show up unconditionally and I'm going to do whatever it takes regardless of the result, right? Same thing with business, guys. Like you think that I get paid a specific amount per hour? You think that I get paid a specific amount per year? No way. Um, I put in hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of work that I'll never see a dime for. But I'm building pipelines, guys. Like that's the reality, is like I'm building businesses and building things that I get paid sometimes when I'm sleeping. I get paid when I'm halfway across the world. I get paid when I'm like, you know what I mean? Like I can take an entire month off, and I have before, where I go to Thailand for 2 weeks, come back home, and then go to Hawaii for 2 weeks. And I'm still getting paid. And I'm not saying like this is not saying, oh, Dylan's awesome or whatever. Like this is not ego, but my point being, like I've showed up unconditionally for so long that now I can afford to not show up sometimes, and but obviously it has to be planned and thought through and stuff. But um, my point being, like I've showed up consistently or unconditionally for so long that now my money shows up unconditionally for me almost. I wouldn't say I'm 100% there. There's never, and this probably goes back to passive income, right? Like there's no true passive income. You're always going to have to maintain things. You're always going to have to do some type of work, or some big upfront investment. But my point being that with things like that, you've essentially built a pipeline. So all you have to really do is maintain the pipeline and, make sure that things are flowing the way that they should be. And that's the reality. Like that's where I'm starting to get to in this life. And it's not a brag. It's not anything. It's not anything like that. But my point being, like I've simply chose to go down this route unconditionally. Like there's nothing you can do to get me to stop. Like I've lost jobs. I've lived at my aunt's house on her basement. I've done all the stuff. I've went through breakups and divorces and dropped out of college and like all the stuff, guys. But my point being, like I chose to show up for this dream unconditionally for the last 5 years. I chose to show up to work every single day to work on building this for the last 5 years. And so with that being said, it's now the pipeline is almost completely established, and then I can reap the rewards on the back end. It's just simply that you have to show up without expecting to make much money, if like at all any money, for years and years and years and years, and just plant those seeds. And eventually when the time comes, you'll get to a point where you can harvest and you can have that pipeline up and going, and you'll be to a point where you can take the entire month off. You could take, whatever the thing is. And, obviously there was some work involved in leaving for a whole month. But my point being that, like, you just have to simply show up for a long period of time in order to get to that place. So, and same thing with relationships, guys. If you can look at a relationship more as like, what can I give rather than what can I receive? right? And that's one of the biggest problems of today is people look at their relationship as like, oh, you're not giving me what I need. You're not giving me what I need. And but the reality, guys, is like if you can just look at it from a standpoint of I'm just going to show up and give. I'm just going to show up in love because that's who I am, right? And the crazy part about that is it's a universal principle. You only get what you give. So if you give the right energy to every single person around you, and you can like it gets interesting because a lot of the time I like to sit back and I like to think of, okay, what is the energy that I need to give to this specific person in this scenario, right? And if you can nail that, which I'm not that great at yet, I'm doing my best. But if you can nail that and figure out what the energy is that you need to give in each scenario and then just consistently show up and give that, then you should receive everything that you need, or everything that you want or need. But my point being is it's not about what you get, it's about what you give. Man, we've kind of gone off topic. So clarity, guys. Clarity. How do you gain clarity? And the reality is that just comes from the day-to-day actions that bring you closer to your goal. And clarity is a product of action, guys. So you have to take action in order to get clarity. There's no way around that. You can't sit and do nothing and expect to be clear on a goal that is 5 years away. You have to go and you have to start building it every single day and figuring out all the little pieces along the way, and then clarity comes as a byproduct. So if you are not feeling clear about your life, guys, if you're not feeling clear about the direction you want to go, the vision that you have, just start. Like, just do the little things. Like, if you want to start a company, get a logo, right? Invest $300 to $500 with a graphic designer and get a logo, right? Or a lot of people like to register the LLC. I'm not an LLC guy. I mean, obviously I have LLCs registered, but I like to do that after we start making money, which saves a lot of time and energy. But my point being, whatever the next step in your head is, like if you look at something and you have like some far off goal, right? Maybe you want 1 million followers, right? If you want 1 million followers, think of the things that the people with 1 million followers do. Well, they probably post 2 or 3 times a day. They probably provide some type of value in their posts. They probably, I don't know, do YouTube or whatever, like dissect the platform and be like, okay, well, maybe draft up a post schedule for yourself. Oh, I want 1 million followers. Okay, well, that means I need to post 3 times a day for the next 2 years, right? Or whatever. I don't know the analytics, but my point being, like, if you can simply just like whittle it down to like, what's the thing that I can do now, right? And then just do that every single day. And the more that you execute and the better you execute that plan, then the farther you're going to get. And the reality is, like, the clarity will just come as a byproduct of showing up and making the 3 videos a day, or pressing record, or getting the logo, or whatever the thing is. Like, clarity comes as a result of action. So always, always, always remember that. And next time you're feeling unclear, or next time you don't know the next step to take, just, okay, well, next time you're feeling unclear, figure out the next step you can take, whether that be posting on Instagram or DMing someone or whatever. Figure out the next step and just do it. And I promise you will find clarity along the way. I promise that. Okay, guys. That was a good one today. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you've made it this far, you're a real one. So make sure to like, subscribe, all the stuff that helps the algorithm. And we will catch you next week, guys. Have a good rest of your week.